Hi guys, and welcome to Gotta Glitter. I'm your host Kirsty, and you're listening to the audiobook podcast of my memoir by the same name. This week we are reading chapter 21, titled I Wanted Them All. This is a lyric actually taken from one of my songs titled Incomplete. I recorded an EP in 2016, my second EP, and this is one of the songs on that album. You can find all the songs on Spotify. The album is called Breathe and Repeat. So you're welcome to have a listen to all the songs on that album and this song in its entirety as well. We even made a lyric music video to go with this song. So that's on my website and on YouTube. Just search Kirsten Moore Incomplete and it will come up. And we made a couple of other music videos for songs on that album as well. I'll put the links to all of that in the show notes. But right now, let's take a listen to a little portion of the song and get into the chapter.
My mind is a landslide, sliding out of control. I struggle to hold on, but you let me go. I wanted to breathe in every inch of the world. I wanted to be wanted like I wanted them all. I never knew why I felt desire, why it was incomplete when it wasn't mine. My soul is a record that plays on repeat. I'm just waiting for you to get sick of me. My mouth is a smile, plastic to my lips, spilling kisses and laughter and charming little quips. I wanted to breathe in every inch of the world.
Chapter 21, I Wanted Them All. Soundtrack, Incomplete, Kirsten Moore. I remember very little of my first few days in rehab, but I was terrified. I know that. Having removed all of my obvious addictions, I sought comfort in familiar friends, like male company and disordered eating. I had never been one to purge after eating, and my anorexia had been in recovery for almost a decade. But without any other release, all I wanted to do was hide in the bathroom and make myself sick. I only did it once or twice before I decided this was unhelpful behavior, but the urge to find an outlet was overwhelming. I wasn't the only one struggling with this. There was a pretty girl about my age in group therapy with me who had been an ice addict, among other things. She would come to group talking rapid fire about absolutely nothing. It was excruciating and clear she was abusing her ADHD medication. She was seriously two-faced and would talk shit about me behind my back. But occasionally she would give me stolen sugar packets, so I let it slide. Once she came to group with bloodshot eyes and these tiny little red spots all over her face. She said she had been up all night making herself sick, and the pressure in her head was so intense that it burst the blood vessels in her cheeks and eyes. That was the day I stopped purging. My face is my moneymaker. I'm not going to walk around looking like a half-baked leper. No, sir. Another woman in her mid-40s arrived in my first week. She was tall and blonde and would have been absolutely stunning before the years of alcohol abuse left her haggard and gaunt. I remember being jealous of her disappearing frame and annoyed at myself for it. She had been to the facility twice before, but hadn't managed to maintain sobriety on the outside. Her husband had told her he would leave her and take their daughter if it didn't work this time. She was always crying. Every time I saw her, she was in fits of tears, and again, I was jealous. She was bold enough to express what I was too afraid to show, surrounded by onlookers. She snuck out on her first night. She waited until everyone was asleep and the facility was closed. Then she jumped over the side fence and made a run for it. She walked for an hour until she found an open pub. She got absolutely hammered until she was kicked out for being drunk and disorderly. And then she made her way back to rehab. She was caught trying to sneak back in. The next day was very exciting as people were talking in whispers and hushed tones throughout the facility. The rumours were flying about her fate. This incident was taken very seriously as apparently this had happened on other visits. Eventually, it was decided that she was allowed to stay, but if it happened again, she would be asked to leave and not be allowed to return. The next night, she did it again. I attached myself to the men in my group therapy classes. My attempt to fill the void that Simon and now Alessandro had left behind. And probably Dad too, if we're going to get all Freudian about it. Flirting was forbidden, so I was cautious not to be overt with my attachment style. But going from suctioning myself to men like a barnacle to normal human interaction was difficult because by day 3, I was held back after group. My group therapist pulled me aside, which instantly ruffled my feathers. The only thing worse than being told what to do is being told what to do by a young, attractive therapist the same age as you. Yes, I said with all the attitude of a 15-year-old girl in a standoff with her teacher. Thanks for hanging back, she said, smiling. So, I've noticed you're becoming quite close with a couple of the men in the group. Would you agree? I'm just trying to make friends. What the fuck kind of question is that? I mean, I've only been here 3 days. To her credit, I was already exchanging saliva with Evan by day 2 in the psych ward, only she didn't know that. I was shocked. It's not like I was walking around holding hands or exchanging lingering glances with anyone. I wasn't sneaking away to make out in the disabled bathroom or inviting boys into my room at night. I was behaving to the best of my abilities, which meant that what she was sensing was just me and my innate sense of slut, which is totally the name of the fragrance the 15-year-old I was channeling would wear. Slut de jour by impulse. It was humiliating. Could everyone see my desperation? Was I walking around with a sign on my face that read DTF? She continued. In an effort to help you get the most out of the program and address your codependency, myself and the other supervisors thought it would be best if you didn't spend time with the men anymore. Oh, great. So everyone is sitting around and talking about the slut in room 5B. What do you mean? By now, I was starting to low-key freak the fuck out. Remember, this is all for your own good, not to punish you in any way. She was talking slowly and calmly to avoid angering the beast in front of her. But it was too late. My nostrils were already in full flare, and I anticipated her next words. We no longer want you to be around the men in any capacity, social or otherwise. Well, I live with them, so, I said, burning holes through her head and into the whiteboard behind her. Sure. We just want you to avoid talking to and sitting with them. Obviously, in group, you'll be together, but try not to sit with any of them at meal times or during free time. Avoid walking with them during exercise, and avoid eye contact or responding to them as much as possible. Are you serious? I can't look at them. Sorry, but that's some Handmaid's Tale type shit. I know it sounds extreme, but I promise this will benefit you. You are only here for a short time, and we want to make the most of that. Whatever, I replied, working my petulant teenager like the pro I am. There's just one more thing, she said, now looking worried. Here we bloody go, I thought. rolling my eyes. You will now have to stand up at every morning meeting and read this. She handed me a small written note. Every morning after breakfast, all the residents and staff got together for a meeting to discuss the day's activities. Anyone who had broken the rules was required to stand up and repent in front of the entire group. They claimed it was about taking ownership of our actions, but it felt a lot like ritual shaming. The note read, I am whole. I do not attract the male gaze for my self-worth, which is fine as a private affirmation, I think to myself, not publicly announced to a group of strangers who I had to live with for the next month. You've got to be kidding me. You make it sound like I'm a fucking predator. Infuriated, I went to storm out, but quickly remembered I needed her help. Shit. Oh, can you sign this for me, please? I said sweetly, as if I hadn't just taken a giant shit on her desk. She looked at the form and sighed. This is a contact form for your boyfriend? Yes it is, I said, pretending I didn't notice the blatant irony of the situation. It's just, you did say I could email him, seeing as he's in Canada and I can't call him. Fine. You get one of these, okay? One. Yep, got it. I breathed a momentary sigh of relief before being flooded with overwhelming shame. I spent the rest of the day in bed, alternating between crying and sleeping. Occasionally, I would march up and down the halls, hoping someone might ask me what was wrong. But there'd been an influx of patients leading up to New Year's Eve, and limited staff due to the holiday season. So everyone was run off their feet. No one had time to talk to me, which increased my sense of invisibility. I wasn't allowed to fall into arms of the men for support, and the nurses weren't helping. So naturally, I lost my tiny mind. I stormed up to the nurses' station and launched into a full-blown rant. So what? Is no one going to talk to me? Isn't that the entire reason I'm here? I've literally just been told I'm not allowed to talk to any of the residents in the whole facility, and now not even the goddamn nurses will see me. Look, if no one has time for me, just give me a fucking Valium. I mean, it goes against all the reason I'm here, but you're clearly too busy to assist me in any other way, so hey, let's just lean on the drugs again. This continued for quite some time before they caved and sent someone to talk to me. Just kidding. They gave me a Valium and put me to bed. It was not a good day. A few hours later, I woke groggy and puffy-eyed. My stomach gnawed with emptiness, and I had to keep checking my hands to make sure I still existed. I felt like I was fading away, like I was becoming less densely pixelated, and soon I'd be gone. Eventually, a nurse joined me in my room. I hear you're having a rough day. What's going on? By now, my rage had subsided, and I was left dull and lifeless. They've isolated me from everyone. I'm completely alone. I just want to go home. But you're not alone, sweetheart. It's just the men we want you to avoid. Exactly, I'm alone. What isn't she getting? She paused for a moment, then said, What about the other 50% of the people here? I blinked at her, confused. Huh? The women, she added. My eyes widened with the realization. The thought had not even crossed my mind. Not for a second. To say I was unimpressed is an understatement. How would women fill the gaping wound in my heart that had been left there by men? It didn't make sense. But after a few days of hiding in my room and being a little shit, I eventually tried to engage with the women. In fact, I'd been so determined not to rely on the women that I found a way to manipulate the system. Tommy's charisma and animated nature deceived the staff into thinking he was LGBTQI. I decided to use his accidental deception to my advantage and forced him to be my friend. As we walked up and down the beach, singing 90s Billy Piper, pop songs, and talking about what it was like for him to work alongside Leonardo fucking DiCaprio. I fucking know, you guys. We became besties. I would love to tell you I learned all kinds of sordid celebrity details or got Leo's number and became the next young piece on his arm. Lol, I'm over 25. That was never going to happen. But tragically, his NDA is stronger than the force of our addictions combined. It's probably for the best anyway. I don't want Leo learning about the life-size calendar I had of him when I was 12, or the tiny Leo images I would cut out of Smash Hits magazine and blue tack to my wall until it was covered from corner to corner. Reluctantly, I started to befriend the women and realized their stories weren't so different from my own. They were women who had been disillusioned by love, deceived by men, and hurt beyond compare. They had experienced the most horrific abuse from the people who were meant to protect them. Many were musicians and artists. They were sensitive and funny and would have me crying with laughter. It's easy to forget how incredibly sensitive addicts can be. We are people who, for whatever reason, struggle with the intensity of the real world, so we search for ways to escape it or dull it down. When I first got clean, I remember feeling like a veil had been lifted, and not in a good way. If I'd been watching the world through a blurred Vaseline-smeared lens, the likes of which Cher might enjoy, it suddenly leapt into full-blown HD. It was so uncomfortable, like I was too close to everything. Remember in Willy Wonka when Mike TV transitions from watching telly to being in the show itself? It was like that. The world was too real, and I felt as though everyone was watching me and knew exactly what I was thinking. Waking up in rehab on New Year's Eve felt oddly comforting. Perhaps it gave me a way to mentally halt my self-destruction and start the new year with healthier goals. Or perhaps it was just the sunshine and soft beach air that made life seem more bearable. Either way, a welcome sense of hope rippled through the facility. I attended the early morning yoga class, saluting the sun with pride in my heart as I remembered who I used to be. I thought about the fact that I was here. I hadn't died or given up, which in itself was an indication of hope. I may have felt hopeless, but my actions proved otherwise. There was still a little bit of something left in me, something that, despite wanting to stay in bed all day, got me up to do yoga on the grass overlooking the beach. Spark, my psychologist called it. A tiny little ember that the surrounding darkness hadn't yet snuffed out. And with that tiny spark, there were only two options. Let it die out completely, or fan the flames and gently encourage its growth. Some of that hope came from friendship, a bond I had been without for many months. You make friends fast in a place like that. 1, because you are living together, and 2, because you are sharing the ugliest, most vulnerable parts of yourself in an environment that is without judgment. It becomes very difficult to judge people on their misadventures when you too are so deeply flawed. Some people came straight from selling their bodies on the street for heroin, and they were coked up, high-flying movie execs. But we were all in the same place at the end of the day. It didn't matter how rich, successful, or well-known you were out there. In here, you were stripped to your core, to your deepest shame. And rather than destroying you, you realized that you were not alone. You were okay. You were understood. And you were still lovable. New Year's Eve was hot, in the high 30s, as we took our afternoon stroll along the beach. Someone was throwing a ball around, occasionally hitting the forbidden ocean edge. We were allowed to get our toes wet, but weren't allowed in past our ankles. OH&S BS. We were a group of hooligans, 18 to 60, but the consequences fell on the staff if we got injured. The ball started creeping further and further into the sea with each throw. We went from ankle-deep water to knee-deep, then thigh-deep, until we reached fuck-it levels of wetness and jumped all the way in. You need to understand that although we were there to better ourselves, we were also a group of troublemakers who resisted authority and got a thrill from breaking the rules. It must be an innate quality of addicts. We do not like being told what to do. Alessandro had even commented that I could be stuck in the middle of the desert, desperately dehydrated, but the moment someone told me to drink, I would rather die than take that refreshingly cool glass of water. Honestly, the best way to get me to do something is to tell me to do the opposite. I know, I'm the worst. So something as harmless as having a splash in the ocean on a scorching hot day seemed like the rule was waiting to be broken. We kept pushing the boundary of that ball until 10 of us were neck deep, splashing in the water. The water was cool and fresh, a liniment for our cracked, rusty interiors. Its rhythmic waves lapped against our skin, cleansing us of our sins. The communal relief was palpable as we were reborn and baptized by the forgiving ocean. Together, we remembered what it was like to play, to discover that we still had the capacity to experience joy. We could be happy without a substance. Many of us had not felt that since childhood. We continued to laugh, play ball, and catch waves as our supervisor ran, arms flailing down the beach, screaming at us to get out of the water. You are all out of here. The mood instantly shifted as we realized we might be getting kicked out of the program before our new chapter had even begun. We slunk out of the sea, clothes sopping, as we tried vainly to squeeze any water from our hair and shirts. Moments earlier, we had been body slamming each other beneath the waves, and now we were trying to dry ourselves in the sun with seconds to spare. We weren't fooling anyone. On the walk back to the facility, we snickered at each other like naughty teenagers, but inside we carried a pit of dread in our stomachs. None of us were ready to go home yet, not by a long shot. We were sent to our rooms to dry off. Later, we gathered in a line of seats in front of the hospital staff, like a firing squad, while they decided what to do with us. We sat anxiously, looking at our feet and bouncing our legs. I was shuffling in my chair and shivering as I felt the water from my wet hair trickle down my back. We sat for what felt like an hour as the staff debated the consequences. They left the room, at which time we all turned to each other and started bitching about how fucked up this all was and how completely undeserving we were of punishment. Which, of course, was totally untrue. This was rehab, after all. When they returned to the room, we all sat bolt upright in our chairs and held our breath. The bravado from moments ago vanished immediately. Now it really did feel like Big Brother was deciding our fate. Would we be safe from this week's elimination round? After a long pause, our coordinator announced we could stay. We collectively breathed a sigh of relief before scurrying out of the room, lest they change their minds. There were whispers that the decision was mostly due to the number of us that had broken the rules. To lose 10 patients in one go would not be a good look for the hospital. Thank you, optics. Our punishment was to stand up and announce our wrongdoings to the entire group of inpatients and staff at every morning meeting. More public shaming? No probs. By now, I had mastered the art of coping with en masse daily shaming. Add it to the list. Hi, I'm Kirsty. Today I feel, looks at daily emotion chart, angry and sad, I guess. I am a codependent, bipolar, depressive drug addict, and I have 2 affirmations to deliver today. The first is, I am whole. I do not track the male gaze for my self-worth. And the second, I am here to heal. I trust in the process and those here to assist me. I do not seek out self-destructive behaviors. After robotically rattling off my affirmations, I slumped back in my chair and pulled my hoodie over my head in a bid to make myself disappear. After our day of debauched fun in the water, there were whispers we'd be forbidden from witnessing the 7 o'clock fireworks display that evening. This was something we'd all been looking forward to. That is, until we realised 7 o'clock in Sydney during daylight savings time is too bright to see anything but an occasional plume of smoke in the distance. Despite being a lacklustre experience, as far as rehab goes, it was almost as exciting as another ice cream day. So, fortunately, we didn't miss out. We were, however, punished by being forced to stay at the facility for the next week. It's true that most of us were already there against our will, and leaving the premises for other than our 45 minutes of daily supervised activity was forbidden. But there were a couple of nights a week where we would be led off campus for 12-step meetings. This was our only social interaction with other humans in the real world, so it was always very exciting. It was also the only place we had access to caffeinated coffee and sweet biscuits, so denial was no joke. That evening, instead of going to the town hall for SLA, the aptly named Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, we stayed in-house. A group of perverts, myself included, sat pouting in our common area, waiting for the depravity to begin. Of all the meetings I've been to, Narcotics Anon, Alcoholics Anon, and CODA, Codependency Support Groups, SLA was hands down the best for gruesome intrigue. The stories you hear are such an interesting mix of twisted, horrifying, salacious, and sad. Like a car crash you can't look away from. The first SLA meeting I attended was a lesson on the differences between men and women. It was mixed, meaning there were both men and women in the group. Our counsellors recommend attending meetings of one's own gender where possible, as women and men tend to have different issues. In all 12-step programs, it is also advised not to date for the first 12 months of sobriety, as it can challenge progress. In my limited experience of hearing men's stories, I've noticed that they tend to be much more physical in nature. You get your peeping toms, stalkers, serial cheaters, and chronic masturbators. On the other hand, women tend to deal more with emotional issues such as codependency, heartbreak, obsession, and self-loathing. Bitches may be cray, but men, well, men are downright terrifying. If you spend some time in those rooms, you begin to realize just how fragile we all are. How life can be turned completely on its head by something as elusive as emotion. Self-helpers can preach about willpower, logic, and the power of positivity all damn day. But when you are in the heat of the moment, and all you want to do is fight, fuck, hunt, or kill, there is no mantra on earth that can save you. You just have to get yourself somewhere safe, where you can limit the amount of damage you do. There was a moment during the in-house meeting where one of the new recruits decided to share. The deal in any of the meetings is that you let the person speak and just listen. By doing this, we let their story remind us why we are choosing a different path or inspire us with hope. When they're finished talking, we don't offer feedback or talk it through as a group. They can do that in therapy. We just move on to the next speaker. The newbie spoke candidly about the 200-person deep gay orgies he frequented. Seemingly fueled on nothing but coke and cum, these men would meet for the ride of their lives. I listened intently, wide-eyed in poorly masked glee. I had a million questions and nowhere for them to go. I had to physically hold my hand under my chin to stop my jaw falling to the floor. He finished his sordid little tale with a flippant wave of the hand and a But anyway, we've all been there. Who has? Me has? I looked around the entire group, desperate to catch someone's eye, but no one would meet my gaze. They all nodded in quiet acceptance as we moved on to the next speaker. I sat there for the next hour, wondering if I was the biggest prude in this sea of horny rehabians. That night, I went to sleep trying to mentally work out the logistics of the piles of heaving male bodies. When elephants travel in packs, you know how they hold the elephant in front's tail with their trunk, which continues in a long line of adorable traveling giants? Well, that was the best idea I could come up with, but like a lot less quaint. Thanks for listening. If you want more, check out the show notes and follow the link to my website or Linktree, where you can get your very own copy of the book in eBook or paperback. Join me on Instagram or listen to the Spotify playlist of all the theme songs from the book. Don't forget to subscribe to the pod so it downloads straight to your app each week. And if you like the show, why not share it with your mates? All right, see you guys. Bye.